Xavier Legette and Jonathan Mingo, wide receivers for the Carolina Panthers, need to be big parts of their 2024 offensive game plans. We're going to talk about how they've been performing in training camp, all that and more coming up next.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Locked On family? Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your boy, Damian Parsons. You can find and follow me on X at DP_NFL. I'm a senior draft analyst, and thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. You know I got to kick the intro to Mr. LSU himself, Keith Sanchez. You can find and follow him on X at The Talent Code. Can you talk to him, baby?
What's up, Locked On family? Let's get locked in. This is Keith Sanchez, 2019 national champ, man, and the other side to this dynamic duo that we like to call the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, man. Listen, I want to start this podcast off by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. Every listen is greatly appreciated as we are in training camps. If you're on YouTube, you can read the banner at the bottom, Inside NFL Training Camps. We are locked in right now. DP, we're going to talk about our guy, man, Mr. Xavier Legette, out there in your neck of the woods, man. How is he operating for those Carolina Panthers, making big-time plays? Then Emmanuel Forbes, year 2 player, right? Will we see what we seen as the prospect coming out of Mississippi State, or will we see the up and downs that we seen last year during his rookie year? And then Joe Oates, first taste of padded practice. How did that go for the Los Angeles Chargers? First round pick, number 5 pick overall over there with Harbaugh. So we'll talk about all that and more. But before we get started, DP, why don't we hit him with a title sponsor?
Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Xavier Legette, Keith, a guy that has been impressive throughout camp. And a guy that right now you see the big plays down the field. You see the clips, circulating on Twitter. I think it was in the rain, one-on-ones, him getting vertical, beating the DB down the field, right? Being able to separate, and Bryce getting the ball out there to him on the outside. That's going to be a big thing for Bryce in this receiving core when you have Mingo and Legette and even Deontay Johnson, all guys who can win on the vertical plane in different ways, right? Whether it was speed, tempo, pacing, whatever. Those guys can do those things. And with Xavier Legette, man, he's just been able to showcase his full skill set, right? Like yards after catch, being physical after the catch. I think J.C. Horn had a quote said, man, you don't realize, basically saying like you don't realize how you see how big Xavier Legette is, but you don't realize how strong he is until you have to engage with him. He's like, man, in one of these reps, I had to hold on for dear life. I got a flag, but I had to hold on because when he puts his body against yours and he uses that arm to separate and kind of, little chicken wing, different things like that, like you feel it. He's like, you feel the power of this rookie. So he's like, yeah, I was holding on for dear life. I didn't care about the flag. I just couldn't let him catch the pass just freely. But yeah, man, him against, I think, the cornerback, Lamar Jackson, who they have on their roster right now, one-on-ones, you're seeing kind of the main development for me with him was just work on. People say he didn't like his route running. I thought he was an underrated route runner. I said what he needed to improve was at the line of scrimmage with his release package. You can't just out muscle and out physical every single DB. You need to be able to win quickly, sometimes win with finesse, because the quicker you get into your route, the quicker and more trust your quarterback's going to have with you, and you can get the ball and be force-fed the ball because you're the one getting open immediately. So he's showcasing himself well. Of course, ball skills at the catch point. He's doing all the things you expect him to do. And I think this offense is going to be vastly improved simply because of adding him. Of course, Deontay Johnson, Mingo has been balling out in camp as well. Bryce Young now seems to have him a nucleus of some pass catchers that will help him out this year.
Yeah, and it seems so important, and I think it's impressive for Xavier Legette that he's having a quick start, right? And I would say this, that going against somebody And unfortunately, JC Horn has, had his injuries in the past, but he's healthy right now. And we know that he was a first round corner. He was the first corner taken in that draft, right? So you're talking about a guy with supreme talent and just being able to get those reps, DP, against a guy with that physical profile in JC Horn, I think gives Xavier Legette a good look into what the NFL is going to be. And it's funny because they're both South Carolina boys too, now that I think about it. But looking at this, DP, I'm looking at your quote, and I listened to your quote and talk about JC Horn saying that he was surprised how big, strong Xavier Legette was. And I'm like, I don't know. I wouldn't have been that surprised. The guy looks like a dude, right? Like he looks the part. He looks like he's really doggone strong at the end of the day. But I get it. I just think, like you said, it's impressive for Xavier Legette and just him to kind of lead the way as far as what this new look Carolina Panthers offense via the wide receiver core, something that was so heavily critiqued and it was justified right last year.
Yeah.
I'm excited, man, because you know what I'm seeing? Some of these plays I'm watching, and I was like, man, just imagine not thinking that Xavier Legette is explosive, right? Because we had that during the draft process. Oh, can he run fast? Or how explosive is he vertically and things like that? And you seen this guy going up and over guys in the NFL first week of training camp. So it's like this guy's just a naturally gifted football player at the end of the day.
No, 100%, man. I think, there's some beat reporters that said, like, yeah, Jonathan Mingo's been playing very well in camp so far.
And that's a good sign. And can I say this, that maybe Xavier Legette elevating over him as far as being the number one or the number two, right, and bumping him down the pecking order, even the acquisition of Deontay Johnson, and allowing Jonathan Mingo to be wide receiver 4 is the best thing for him, right? Would you rather him be a bad wide receiver 2 or a good wide receiver 4, right? And sometimes you have to look at it like that.
And it's crazy because like reading some of the beat writer reports, you got some that's like, I mean, all of them are praising Mingo, but it's been, I think it was David Newton tweeted out and said that Mingo is actually putting the Xavier Legette behind him right now in the pecking order. And I'm like, yeah, because I think they're just starting pads later this or around the middle of this week, around this time. So they're just getting into padded practices. And I think for me, that's when things really shook. I think Steve Smith was on my guy Kyle Bailey and everything over in North Carolina radio station. He said, yeah, no, I've been like, he said, I don't need to watch the tape on Mingo this summer. He's been working with me this whole offseason, and he's been waking up, getting up at 7 a.m., things like that, going to work with me. And I'm like, yeah, I thought to myself, yeah, Steve, you better take him under your wing. You're the one who told him to draft him. So you better make sure he's successful. But, like, I think that's a good thing to have Steve working with him, because then at the end of the day, for me, if I'm Bryce, I want all my young athletic playmakers on the field. Because I know, and I'll say this, Keith, Adam Thielen, yes, he can. He's a wily vet. He can get open. He can be where you need him to be. All the cliche stuff we say about veteran receivers who've been in the league for 10 years. But athletically, he is capped. Like, he's the worst athlete on that receiving court, and it's not even close, right? At this stage of his career. And while it makes sense that, you want to put him in the slot, I personally feel like this: if Mingo and Xavier are both playing well in camp, I'm sorry, in the 11 personnel, I'm going Deontay, Mingo, Xavier. The reason why, you're not in position to win the playoff game this year. You're not a contender, so you don't have to win right out the gate. What you need to do is be preparing yourself to win in the future. And getting these two young guys, you already know what Deontay Johnson is, but getting Mingo and Xavier rolling, to me, that's more important than feeding the ball to like how Frank Reich was doing, feeding the ball to Adam Thielen last year when he was the only weapon. No, get those two young guys on the field. If they continue the play they've shown in camp into the preseason, then for me, my top 3 receivers, no matter who's 2 or 3, number one's going to be Deontay Johnson, but Jonathan Mingo and Xavier Legette is going to be on the field in some way, shape, or form, because at the end of the day, I need my young guys to be able to develop with my young quarterback, and that's how I look at it.
Yeah, they have to start figuring it out because that's high investments, right? Talking about Xavier Legette, what the backing of the first round, talking about Jonathan Mingo, what he was
traded up to the top of the second.
Yeah, top of the second round pick. So that's a lot of draft capital you have in those two guys, and what you did, what you had to do to get Deontay Johnson. So you have to get those young guys, getting them moving and getting them going forward, right? But DP, man, let's go to Washington. Let's talk about these Commanders, man. Let's switch to the defensive side of the football and talk about another first rounder and Emmanuel Forbes, right? Entering his second year, is he poised to have a much better year in a defensive scheme that appears to better fit his skill set? So coming up next, we're going to talk about Emmanuel Forbes with those Washington Commanders.
Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. And not only that, guys, you think about just last-minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals, the fact that their tickets are easy to find and buy, not just for MLB, but also for any kind of event in your area. So, guys, it's very simple. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets right now with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Washington Commander first round pick of the 2023 NFL Draft, cornerback Emmanuel Forbes, Keith, and a guy that came in around $165, $175, somewhere in there. And we saw that weight give him issues against the AJ Browns that you see twice a year, the DJ Moores of the world, those bigger, stronger, more physical receivers. And last year, their DC had him playing a lot more press man against those type of guys. Those are the guys I'm telling him to play off coverage against. Now you talk about Dan Quinn coming in as the head coach, bringing that scheme, that cover 3 scheme that we saw Deron Bland lead the league in interceptions with. We've seen Trayvon Diggs be a high interception guy and became one of the better corners in the league. But also, Keith, they said that this offseason, he's changed his diet and he's been bulking up. He added almost 20 pounds, I think about 15 pounds to his frame. And, kind of looking at him in clips from practice when they're going through tackling drills, he's one of the more aggressive guys. He's trying to play physical. He's adding more to his body, and I think that's going to bode well for him. Because what do we know about him coming out of college, right? We knew that ball skills, route recognition, especially from his landmark in off coverage, this is a guy that's going to bait you into some compromising throws. And he had that. He tested like 4.3 something at the combine last year. So the speed you see on tape on terms of that click and close or just that close from a flat-footed off-coverage landmark, it showed up in his 40 time. So I am interested with the added 15 pounds. Does he keep that same granted, if you go from 4.37 to 4.41, it's not that big of a difference. You know what I mean? It's not that big of a difference. But I do wonder how he will, athletically, how he will fare this year. And I'm interested to see, will he, with this added weight and strength, will we see him closer to the line of scrimmage again, or will Dan Quinn say, no, let's if we do, we're gonna press bail you, right? Show press coverage, bail out of there, or just side saddle, get you out into cover 3 zone drop. I think he could be poised for a bigger year. You brought Mike Singer still in to play more of that nickel spot. He can play the other outside corner as well. He's just that talented of a kid, former wide receiver. But I think Emmanuel Forbes, if he can move well and play and change directions and still be that type of athlete, being a little bit bigger frame with almost 20 pounds added to his frame, I think that could help him a lot this season.
Yeah, I'll say this, DP. And at the very beginning, when you were talking, right, you talked about him, the press man versus playing off. He's a prime candidate for me I'll put him on the line of scrimmage, right? But he would be in that press bail situation, right? Just to show different looks, but also I want his length to be disruptive, but I don't want to have I don't want him to have to rely on strength to win, right? Like just kind of get in the way a little bit, get in the way a little bit, just be a little bit disruptive, throw the wide receiver a different look. And then, like you said, man, playing in this cover 3 scheme, the track record is there, and you can date all the way back to, I believe, with Dan Quinn, right? He's with the Seattle Seahawks, I believe, and that's the Richard Shermans and the Baron Brownings, right? These taller, longer corners who didn't necessarily have the hip fluidity, which Emmanuel Forbes as a draft prospect, we talked about, right? Like, hey, good, but a little bit tight in the hips. It just fits this scheme. And I even remember Trayvon Diggs, right? And at Bama, they played a decent amount of man. And I remember, funny enough, it was a Carolina scout, just having a conversation with him when he came into the building, because we was talking about Jamar Chase, right? So we're sitting down watching film, and we just so happened to watch that, watching the most recent film, which was that 2019 LSU versus Bama game. And it was like Trayvon Diggs, I think he had like one great play. And then it was like, so it's the defensive cuts. So then went through, and then it was a bad play. And then, the scout was like, man, that's the story of Trayvon Diggs, man. Give you one good play, then one play that you question. But the point is that I think it was because at Bama, he played more man. You put him in a cover 3, a zone situation, and then now you get the better versions of Trayvon Diggs more consistently, right? Like it's not the same peaks and valleys. So I think Emmanuel Forbes is, if I had to invest money into him increasing his level of play, I definitely would, and I'll feel good about that bet because I think he's going to be put in good situations.
No, 100%. And I think, we're looking at the body types, right? I want to put some things in perspective for our listeners here.
Yep.
Coming out of college, Emmanuel Forbes, at the combine, height was 6'1". He weighed 166. He had 32 and a quarter on the arm, ran a 4.35, jumped almost 38, and had a 10-11 broad. It's crazy. His 10-yard split was a 1.48. Like that's nuts.
Yeah,
right?
That's wild.
You think about Sauce, and this was kind of the guy I thought about with him. Like Sauce is 2 inches taller, right? 6'3". Sauce came in at 190. His arm length was 33 and a half. So he's got a little bit, a little bit longer, taller, longer body profile, and everything like that. Yep. And profile was Sauce, ran a 4.41, 1.54 10-yard split and everything. So it's like, okay, 166. If he stayed at 166 as a rookie, that was concerning because it's like, yeah, this is a grown man league. 166 at a corner is kind of tough. You got to tackle running backs, tight ends, and big receivers. Adding 15 pounds, that's going to put him up close to that 180 mark, right? So if he can be that if he can stay 180 to 185, if he can get to 190 in year 3, great. But I think 180 to 185, I think that would be a nice sweet spot for him. Looking at the pictures of him, like you could tell he added some muscle. He added a little bit more weight to his frame. He doesn't look as rail thin as he did as a rookie. And I was reading, it was like this offseason, he's been doing he added a lot more steak to his diet and everything.
A lot more steak.
Yeah,
like the food.
He ate a lot more steak this off season, like steak and eggs, steak and potatoes, stuff like that, to really add that weight and give him that protein that he needed. But I think just for this young man, like he's just in a situation. They say he's ready. That's what the reports are, that he's ready to showcase his newfound strength, his physicality, and everything. And I'm like, if he can go out there and, like you said, just get to his spots in this defense, right? Know the coverage calls, communicate, know how to pass off the routes the way that Dan Quinn is going to need him to do. All they need is from that front 4, because I mean they got Jonathan Allen, Jerzon Newton, and Daron Payne, right? And you're hoping that KJ Henry then takes that step as a second-year edge. If that front 4, Keith, can start getting some pressure, you know what I mean? That's when you allow him to then be that advantageous playmaker on the football, where he can click and close, jump routes. Because then what happens? We know what happens with quarterbacks. They start feeling a little bit of pressure. Not everybody's not Sam Darnold. Start seeing ghosts, but they start hearing footsteps. It's like, I gotta get this ball out. Like this front 4 is getting back here. They've been doing it for 3 quarters. I gotta get this ball out. And you start getting the ball out too soon. Now a guy like I said, Trayvon Diggs, Deron Bland, and the guy with his ball skills like Emmanuel Forbes, 100% can start jumping these passes and we know that he's the NCAA leader, broke the record for pick sixes in his career. He knows how to get it into the end zone. So I'm excited to see year 2 for Emmanuel Forbes. Like I said, the scheme last year just didn't fit him entirely, and then putting him in some very compromising positions. Hey, let's two-hand jam. Let's be aggressive against a guy that has 30 pounds on you. Doesn't really sound like a good idea, in my honest opinion. So I think with Dan Quinn being able to put him in the right spots, we could see a much better second year for Forbes, man, because I know last year was up and down. I think we should see some more consistency in year 2.
Yep, I agree 100% with DP. We started in South Carolina, man. Then we headed up north, right? Kept it on the East Coast with Washington. And then now we about to go all the way across the country, DP, all the way across the country, man. And we're going to fly over there to the Los Angeles Chargers and talk about Mr. Joe Alt. We're going to get some O-line conversation in here. And his first taste of padded practice, man, this guy's going to be slated to be in a big role, right? Playing right tackle for Greg Roman, who's going to run the football, right? That is a very big deal right there. So we're going to have this conversation about Mr. Joe Alt, the number 5 overall pick in the 2024 draft, coming up next.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sporting like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. And guys, you can head over to FanDuel.com right now and check out their odds for all the preseason for NFL and college football. You want to bet on the Heisman, college football playoffs, you want to bet on the MVP, you can do all of that. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. Head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer, because FanDuel is the official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. The 5th overall pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, Joe Alt for those Los Angeles Chargers. Like Keith said, they're going to run the ball with Greg Roman. And he's been actually in camp. He's been playing both left and right because Rashawn Slater had been banged up with a little minor injury. So he's been able to see reps at both sides. But a lot of the beat reports said, man, we want him. We would prefer to see him just play that one side so he can get that development going, because he's never really played that consistently on the right side, Keith. But there was a quote that said, like, during, I think, was it mini camp, no pads and everything, or during the padded practice, non-padded practice, that Joey Bosa was like, yeah, he's quick, he's got some athleticism, he's got some strength. Let's see what happens when we put the pads on. And he had my helmet's in his chest plate, and he's facing a bull rush. And they said pretty early in the first padded practice, Joey Bosa definitely made that claim come to life, because that's exactly what he did, was bull rush him. And they said he won the rep and everything, but they said that Joe Alt, like in that, they talked about it, one of the main concerns for them was his anchor and his overall strength to anchor and anchor quickly. But his recovery athleticism, they said they've been impressed with. Doesn't get beat on the inside a lot. They said that the very next rep that Joey Bosa, they claimed they gave Joey Bosa the win, but they said it was not an easy win for him, because he tried to do a feint punch, show the fake bull rush, and then work back inside, and Alt was able to quickly diagnose it, recognize it, and almost shut it down. He still gave up, I think, a pressure on the inside, but it was more work for Joey Bosa. So just the reports from camp about, Joe Alt, finally getting into being in pads and everything like that, it said he's acclimated himself well. He's had some struggles. Again, I think they have three good passers. You got Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack has given them some trouble, which, I mean, Khalil Mack, right? You kind of know that's going to happen. And then they have Bud Dupree, but they said that he's looked good in that first padded practice, and they're expecting him to. And I think Harbaugh said, I believe, yeah, defense, Bosa, that's fine. You're supposed to be ahead of us right now. Jim Harbaugh's gonna talk his trash. It's like you're supposed to be ahead of us right now. But give us some time, and he's expecting Joe Alt to be able to once he fully gets acclimated to really showcase what he can do at that right tackle spot.
Yeah, I'll say this, DP, because I had opportunity to be around him a couple weeks ago, and where do I stand on? This is where I stand on with the whole moving the left tackle, right tackle, right? It always puts some hesitancy in me. And so I was watching him as he prepared to go to training camp, and I was watching him work at right tackle. And first of all, DP, I'll say this. This is one of the more physically impressive young men, right? You're talking about just like weight, body fat, like just well proportioned, not a fat kid, right? A lean guy, but not skinny, right? Just well proportioned, DP. Like I feel like he, like one of those guys play basketball, like a Julius Randle type, where they're big guys, they're athletic, they're well proportioned, they're good movers. I felt like that about him overall, but just the offensive tackle version. I don't think he about to go jump 40 inches and do windmills. I was just trying to.
You sure he ain't got the drop step and post?
Yeah, right.
Spin move in the paint.
Nah. You don't have that. I was just trying to, paint the picture of just a well-proportioned, big 6'8" football player. And I really appreciated his movement skills, and I left there feeling a little bit better about him playing right tackle. I think I texted you about it, right? And I'm just like, I gotta see what he does at right tackle. But I feel good from what I've seen, and then I asked some of the people there, and I'm like, well, how do they feel about it, right? And he's like, it's doable, right? And that's what even when we had our guy Crafton Lyman on here, he said it's doable. I'm buying into him being good at the right tackle, and it's pedigree, right? Like you watching his pops. I didn't know his pops was a first round pick to the Kansas City Chiefs 30, 40 years ago either, playing tackle, right? So it's like this is some part of it. It's just pedigree, dude. But I'm buying into it. And you want to talk about baptism by fire, DP? Like, how do you, as a rookie offensive tackle, your first day of practice, your first day of NFL pads, period, right? Like not even the first preseason game, not the first regular season game. Literally your first taste of practice, the first time you have pads on in the NFL, you got to look in this Joey Bosa. And then when they swap it out, it's Khalil Mack. And then when they swap it out, it's like, oh, okay, the backup, the third guy is Bud Dupree. Like, when is that fair, DP? That's one of the best. That's honestly like a top 3 tandem in the entire NFL. Then you have to see that practice one. So I'm buying into the baptism by fire also.
No, I love it, right? Because at the same time, you know who he's going to see twice a year. You're going to have to see Mad Max with them Raiders, right? You're going to have to deal with George Karlaftis and Charles Omenihu over with the Kansas City Chiefs. And the Broncos, their situation, I think, got Baron Browning. I think Drew Sanders, whenever he's healthy, they still have to figure out their situation. But you have some talented guys in that division by itself that you have to deal with. And I'm going to be interested, especially like talk about the recovery athleticism, which is something we knew, right? Like you said, when you look at his frame, I remember looking at him up close and personal at the combine. I was like, yeah, like he's lean, he's well proportioned, well built, and everything. And you see it, like you see the way he moves. I'm going to be interested on those counter rushes by like a Mad Max, Max Crosby, a guy who has arguably, like you talking about edge rushers, he has the best spin in the game. Like quick, tight, like it is just elusive. Like he's so explosive off the ball. I expect Antonio Pearson to let's widen Max out a little bit. Let's get this big fella at 6'8", 300 plus pounds. Let's get him on the island. I want to see how he handles that match, especially early on. But what I love them talking about, excuse me, is the mental recognition of the second rep against Bosa. Okay, you want to throw the fake feint punch and then try to work inside. I'm not going to give that to you. You know what I mean? And I appreciate just that mental processing, that mental intellect, the football IQ to quickly identify what is a veteran, a guy who's been one of the best edge defenders in the league since he left Ohio State, that he's trying to throw some nuanced stuff at you, and you didn't bite on it, right? And I do believe that team, like we're going to see some rushers try to power through him, because when you look at some of the reps against the freshman at Clemson and JT Tuimoloau, that's where he was able to, you could get it, because it's hard to get around him. He's 6'8", he's big, he's got long arms, and I love how he keeps his base wide so that when he shuffles laterally or moves laterally in his drop, it's hard to all right, you know what I mean? Like, it's very difficult to get it, whether it's outside or inside. You typically have to try and power through them. And I think this is a guy that he's going to get tested with that early, but it's no better test than the guys that's already on this roster that's going to give him the best look. And I think this, like you said, baptism by fire. Once he gets to that point, Keith, we're talking about middle of the season, stuff like that. Like he might be on the one of those all, I don't know. Did the NFL have an all rookie team? I can't remember, but
he'll be on somebody's list, right?
Yeah, he's been on
that's what
some
we're trying
list.
to say.
Yeah, he'll be on some list as one of the top rookies. They don't like to show the offensive lineman love and offensive rookie of the year and nothing like that. But he'll definitely be talked
we'll
about.
make the list. How about that?
100%. Yeah, we're gonna definitely do the list. No, 100%. I'm excited for Joe Alt, man. Him and Slade are gonna be a nice two-man tackle tandem for Justin Herbert.
Yeah, DP, real quick as we wrap up, I just wanted to say this. I mean, the entire Chargers offensive line, talking about guys they drafted, right? And young guys that's ready to roll. I tell you, I give you an offensive line of Rashawn Slater, right, who they drafted, Zion Johnson, who we forget about, who stole a Senior Bowl, right, along with Jermaine Johnson that year, I believe. Bradley Bozeman, who's out of Alabama. Then Jamari Sawyer, who played all the way to left tackle just to, help out. I know he did a little bit at Georgia, and I think some with the Chargers. And then you round that thing out with Joe Alt, right? So this offensive line, I have faith in it because a bunch of young guys that I think we both like as draft prospects, and all those guys, when you get them guys moving forward, it's going to be some fun. So I think they're going to do the right thing with them. But DP, that wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to say shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day, man. If you can hear my voice, go ahead and hit that like button. Don't forget to comment and make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel over at Locked On NFL Draft. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy. We go to war every single day, man. Mr. Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. Like we always like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today and every day. Shout out for being our everydayers. On tomorrow's show, we have football, guys. We have the Hall of Fame game. Yes, I know that most of the starters don't play, but we're going to preview that game and preview some of the young players that are going to be working their butts off to make their roster and make an impact. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.